Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome back to the Inn of Planar Crossroads, and welcome back to our discussion and chat, which we've got around the hearth up here because that's when we're recording it. That's our time slot we're recording it in. But we're going to kind of do something neat for y'all called Nightmare Lairs, where we're going to discuss different pointers and tips for creating certain layers for monsters. And we're starting with the monsters that truly deserve their lairs, dragons. So, before we get into that, we have myself, Adam L. Spain, from the Inn of Planar Crossroads. We have Levi, who transverses the plains with Kane to both the Inn of Planar Crossroads and Black Dragon Gaming, who is down that way. The recording's doing the right thing. So Tommy. And then we also, because Dan was busy with some other recording of some other thing, we have in his stead a worthy steward, Zachariah, from Avenue Studios, specifically the Bomb Squad show, if you watch that one. So, that's everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. So, we've only got so much time to do these, so we're going to jump right in. We'll do any kind of announcements or things like that at the end of the video. We're going to jump right into these. So I'm going to start real quick. I'll probably do this at each of the videos because I want to mention a couple things that are important to keep in mind when you're making your dragon nests, or dragon dens would be the better way to say it. You've got the age range of your dragons, and this doesn't carry over to everything, but when you're dealing with dragons, remember that you're dealing with something that can live a long time. You're talking about a wormling being from 0 to 5, and then you go all the way up to a great worm who is 1,200 years or older, based upon the different dragon lore. But I'm taking that out of these two books. Ooh, that's from Wizards of the Coast. I think, I'm unclear where, and this one. So I would suspect it's around,
those dragons are having this. Yeah, your tiny house dragons are having a go at it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can't tell dragons, you know. They kind of act like dragons, you know. They do their own thing, and they keep their little hordes, and then they let you love them when they want you to love them, type thing. Unless you're my daughter, who just goes and tames those little house dragons and just grabs them and wags them around whether they scratch her or not until they comply. So.
Yeah, I love the idea of like a wormling dragon that just like follows you around but won't let you touch it.
Don't touch me, unworthy human. Okay, so we're starting with white dragons, as our current title suggests, at least on the recording software. And since Kane was the one gung-ho about this one, and he even did a little paint thing of the lair.
Yes, I did a little MS Paint drawing of the lair because I had a picture in my brain of what I wanted it to look like, and I didn't want to forget it because I would have.
Well, we will let you start then, good sir.
Okay. I think probably the most important thing about like a white dragon's lair, obviously, is just sort of the terrain that it occurs in. White dragons being commonly considered the like quote-unquote weakest of the chromatics because they are just listed. They're listed in the books at a slightly lower CR, and they have a lower average intelligence score than the other dragons. A lot of people sort of sleep on just how dangerous the most predatory of all dragons can be. And I think that goes doubly so when you're dealing with the sort of terrain that white dragons live in, which is like the frozen tops of mountains and the Arctic tundra, or I had the thought, since dragons sort of work ice the same way dwarves work stone. Oh, we've lost Levi.
I can't believe Levi is dead. Oh. I can't believe Levi is immediately
We've got
cast resurrection.
The dragons
now
took him.
back.
Okay.
My laptop's been sad, so I'm back on my phone.
Okay. Or sort of, yeah. Or I thought it would be neat, since white dragons deal so heavily with ice, that you could have a white dragon's lair on top of an iceberg, or it like within an iceberg, and so much of an iceberg exists beneath the surface of the water, you could sort of just tunnel into one. And I don't picture that a white dragon of like adult or higher age probably ever has to worry about ice melting when it doesn't want it to. Especially since after a certain age category, dragons usually put off some sort of elemental, like powerful elemental aura. I know that, for instance, specifically white and red dragons do put off an aura of like cold and heat, respectively, that does not insignificant damage to anyone standing too close to them. So a couple of things that I was thinking about if you're going to deal so heavily in ice and make the best advantage of the sort of terrain and themes that you can work with in the cold would be to take advantage of the properties of the material you're working with. Ice can be of varying degrees of transparency, and I think it's totally reasonable that a White Dragon's Lair might feature like almost glass-like transparent ice that is, you know, very, very hard, both because it's very, very cold and because hardening is a spell that exists in, I think, both Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder. And if you're not playing either of those systems, just make it up, dude. You're the running the game. Figure it out.
Okie dokie. Now on that ice maze thing, we were talking in the Discord, and we were discussing how that whole labyrinth thing would work because I believe it was mentioned that they had an ability to at least kind of check around through the different ice things and watch the mice in the maze, as it were.
Oh yeah. The dragon might construct a sort of like it would be even worse. Yeah, if everyone in this call, I think, is probably old enough to remember playing Pokemon, and when you got to the poison thing, the invisible walls. Basically, just trap your players in a big invisible wall ice maze, where the dragon is sort of like watching and making fun of you from above,
and
where
occasionally breath weaponing down.
Yeah. You spend too long in one puzzle room, breath weapon.
It's not a fair maze.
No,
it's not supposed to be.
You're in my house, dude. You broke into my house.
You want my whatever it is we're hoarding that can stand being frozen.
You're here with your sword in my living room / death maze.
Like, you had to go all the way out to an iceberg? Rude. Stay out of my house.
It was out of the way. Like, you made a choice. You woke up today and chose violence, and I came back and you weren't. You deal with it.
Adam's not here. He can't tell us who goes next.
Oh no!
Shit!
Oh, no.
We lost all.
There's no structure here. Dad, come back!
Dad, help!
Oh,
Less than
I'll
5
step
minutes. I'll
in.
time you. Oh, there he is.
Oh, there he is.
Back from slaying the dragon.
Well, that little house dragon had caught a mouse for its babies, and she wasn't going to be quiet until she went outside and took it to him.
Fair.
All right. I'm sure I missed everything. So, there we go.
We were talking more about the maze.
Oh, okay. So you hadn't gotten to the popsicle treasure boxes then?
Oh, yes. I also talked to a mutual friend of the podcast, and I believe Adam has met Connor before through the one shot that I ran on the channel ages and ages ago. Do not go watch it. It's bad. Connor Teasdale, for a very long time, has been my in-person pre-pandemic GM, who we've started playing together in high school, and I am not afraid to say, even in current company, has grown to be probably one of the, if not the best, Dungeons and Dragons storytellers I've ever met. So I farmed him for his opinion on dragons, and these are some of the things he said. Maybe I'll get him on here another week if we have the time. But I asked him about white dragons, and he said that the thing you have to remember most about white dragons is that they are the most primal out of the chromatics. And they don't want for a lot besides like a moderate horde and a sort of meaty meal. White dragons also like to eat their food entirely frozen, which I can only imagine like a frozen dude popsicle is. It's not a great mouthfeel, really, but to each their own.
Yeah, I guess.
Well,
It's
you
like
don't have a
eating
dragon's
ice from
mouth.
the freezer, but then when you bite down, that's Clorch.
Yeah. It's like someone cranked down the temperature too much on a slushy machine.
Yeah.
But he gave me this lovely little piece of flavor text about walking into a room that the dragon keeps mostly lightless, that he uses as like a meat room, like a meat locker freezer, for all of the other people that come into his lair. That's where they end up, and that's where he keeps them. And you could do like a really cool sort of I don't want to say like Alien Isolation style vibe where you come across this room that is just this like awful ice encrusted abattoir full of human and whatever else bodies.
Yeah.
And at the time I had taken that and run with the idea that you might also do like I thought it would be fun to combine that meat locker idea with an ice garden. Because if you're an adult dragon or older, it's been a couple centuries, you get bored, right? So why not, thaw out and refreeze the things that come into your house in artful decor,
Yes.
Yeah.
Pose them to represent your favorite scene from the last gnomish play you went to 70 years ago.
Before you ate the playwrights.
Before you ate the playwrights. You're now the only person with the original manuscript.
Oh, that
And it's
That's
included
a
in the
good
loot
treasure.
table and worth
It's included
500
in the
gold.
loot table. Yeah.
And you can even, since you're doing your ice garden, you can even dress them up in your baubles that you have collected over the years from your many conquerings, many tributes given to you by those lowly creatures that are not good as dragons. Alright. So, Kane has said some.
Yeah, I've spoken far too long.
Kane has spoken. I suppose what I'll add to that is I suppose the world we're building / the world we're GMing in may be an entirely different, it might not work this way, but thinking about it, this is a creature that is not as long-term goal-y stereotypically as many of the other dragons, but needs to eat a shitload of food because is growing and growing and growing and growing, and also lives in a place where that food might be a little hard to come across, right? Because it's not exactly conductive to life. So a thought occurs that a white dragon's lair might be much, or I guess not lair, but territory, might be a way wider than any say the forest or swamp dwelling dragons where game is plentiful. You might have to go a way long way to chase down the dire buffalo herd that you're feeding off, or whatever village you're getting tribute sacrifices and everything in between from, which makes the when the party decides that here is this thing, it sucks, let's make it not suck anymore. You have this very long, teleportation aside, trek through somewhere that's probably not hospitable for where you live, or somewhere where you're burning spell slots to function in, where this thing could theoretically Skyrim you at any given opportunity, and is also much more mobile than you, right? So it's show up, breath weapon, full attack, that half health, use my 200 fly speed, and then do it again when I'm fully healed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I do think that's a good point, because you've seen this not necessarily with dragons, but using countries in the real world as a idea of what a dragon territory might look like, Russia's huge, but Russia needs all that space to support its people because it's got a lot of space and there's a lot of people and they need that extra growing space to support lively life in that area. And Canada's really big. There's not a lot of people in it.
There is not. Spread out evenly, there's maybe 3 people per square mile.
Damn.
And that's including their big cities like Ontario and all that.
Yeah. It's a big country.
It's a big country, big and empty. There's a lot of stuff in it.
Big. Yeah, there's... It's real spread out and flat, as I'm sure everyone who's ever been to the prairies will tell you.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
It's like Idaho, but for 500 miles in every direction.
Or like the part of Missouri I currently live in.
Mm-hmm.
That occurs too. Like thinking about Canada, like the farther north you go, there is a part of the world where it never gets above freezing, right? That just exists. The farther this way you go, the more it's like seasons, quote unquote, exist. There will be times where it is inhospitable for the white dragon, and there will be times when the winter of your discontent is now upon you, as it is now cold enough to sustain the whims of what's a good white dragon name?
Exnalakta.
That one, where it's like down to like now my hunting grounds have gone this much bigger because it's cold where you are, and there's 3 months worth of a campaign of whatever you're doing. Probably going to be a white dragon sometimes.
And it's a really good time to have the spell Locate Object, because if you're having to search all of Canada versus searching where the lair of a red dragon might be or something like that, or which we'll get to next, they might have a lot more space to look for. So
never underestimate the power of the spell Create Treasure Map.
Yeah,
Does
now that you
work.
clean it up, that's an excellent point. A white dragon's lair, if they live like up above the tree line or something, must be an absolute nightmare to find.
yeah.
Mhm.
And, well, we got to remember that it probably eats, because this is a fantasy world, there are lots of things that would live in that cold area that don't live in, like, the real world. So he'd have
Valid.
more food, but he would not, but Tommy's still right, and the idea of it roaming wide to find its food is a lot more prevalent. Did you have anything specific you wanted to bring up, or was I not here when you did? Zachariah?
Oh, no, you didn't miss anything for me. So one of the things that sticks out to me is basically any kind of encounter with a dragon is going to be deeply memorable. You don't lightly put a dragon into your campaign. They aren't a monster of the week. They are something that you really build up to and you really reward. I think that what stuck out to me with the Ice Dragon encounters that I've had is how much they control the terrain if they have even mild spellcasting abilities or even just an innate ability to summon the worst case scenario of a blizzard that is blocking out everything that you can see. They can see you. You are just blind. You are just running around. It's up there. But at the same time, it also could be below you. If these things are tunneling and burrowing and just moving through the ice as though that's just like a water medium to them, you just don't know where it's coming at you from. It's a three-dimensional battle, above, below, and if you're fighting it fairly on the ground, you're no better off.
I like this guy. Where'd you find this guy?
Check him out as one of the players at Bomb Squad on Avenue Studios YouTube channel.
Thank you.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Excellent points. Thank you so much for coming on.
Indeed.
To talk to the 5e crowd real quick. I know dragons don't get super dangerous into the later levels. And I looked at their stat blocks to see what their abilities are like. If you're running dragons in 5th edition, my advice is please look at the older editions of Dungeons and Dragons and into Pathfinder if you're running them just for the abilities, because as they get older progressively in Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinders, the they get more thematic abilities as they get older, and in particular, white dragons get stuff like Zach said, the ability to see through blizzards and snow cover, and they also get the ability to mold ice and snow as though they were using the spell Shape Stone.
Mm-hmm.
And also, they can spider climb. They can walk on any surface, regardless of angle, so long as it is covered in ice. So in a case where they were like up at the top of a mountain, or in an iceberg, or even just in a real deep snowbank, there's nothing saying that a white dragon's lair couldn't just like go straight down like a beholder's lair would. Because they don't need stairs or anything. They can just walk down the side of the hole that they live in.
It's just an elevator for them. Brings to mind for me a really good trap that Kane told me about, and it's used in a Starfinder AP that I'm GMing, and it's coming up enough that I forget what it's called. It's the part where there's a valley between mountains, and it never melts, so the snow has filled in, and it looks like you can just keep walking on, but actually you don't at all. And
that dragon
where the lair is.
Yeah. That dragon, like you're talking about, can walk on ice. That's what snow is. It could walk on ice and leave no footprints.
Mm.
You don't know where it is. How are you going to track that thing in the ice? Oh, that could get real creepy. That could get like Thing vibes.
I think if you're planning on like building up suspense and tension around a white dragon, really leaning hard into you're being hunted through the tundra by an enormous animal that you for some reason cannot find
until it's too late.
And if I can speak to what you might find, because they have these crazy long-reaching territories, and because they live in a place that could be literally frozen to time, what you can find in their lairs as treasure could be ancient. You think whatever the previous civilization lost is frozen over? If this is an apocalyptic ice, there could be civilizations underneath this thing's lair that it just dives down and brings things up. But it's not it's still primal dragon, right? It might just find something that's some raw energy, raw power, just feeds off of. Or something that's marvelous in it fixates on. And it could be something from far away, too. It may have made these crazy excursions down to the south when it was younger and tried to strike out some new territory. And it's pulled it into a place where a red dragon is afraid to come and get that thing back.
Battle of the vulnerabilities.
Battle of the vulnerabilities.
Yep. I've got a few more pieces of information to let people bring up in this, but I want to give Levi a chance. You got anything, Levi, before I start the spiel?
Okay, so one thing with this talk of the Red Dragon not wanting to fight them, even though they're stronger, I think an important thing is how different the White Dragon's domain is from just about every other dragon, and the habitat they're going to want. So they don't actually have to compete with other dragons most of the time, even though they might be weaker in a straight-up brawl. I also want to point out, we were earlier talking about glass-like ice. I wanted to bring up super-duper impossible to see through ice that could be half an inch thick at various levels to have false walls, false floors, having troops of little subservient kobolds with, spear shooters behind a wall, and they know when they hear you walk through that they just burst through that wall with a bunch of things launched into you. There's a lot of tricksy options for their minions, who get to eat, if this thing decides it doesn't want sentient meat and it just brings an entire whale onto its iceberg, they get to have the scraps of it afterwards.
Oh, yeah. And imagine walking through and tracking down its lair based upon what it's ate before, and you come across this killer whale that's half-eaten and frozen, and you're like, that thing that we're hunting just left that because it was full, and it was like, okay, I'm done. I don't need the rest of this.
this is an excellent point, Levi. And I think when I was talking to Cotter, he also brought up this, is that kobolds really seek to emulate the dragon they serve. And for a white dragon, when I was talking to Cotter, he was saying that he imagines tribes of white kobolds that serve a dragon to be like these horrible little savage, trap-happy goblins. Just like awful little fucking creatures that like bite and claw and gnash and are like they're honestly like white kobolds that serve a white dragon are probably on average like the opposite of white dragons in the chromatic hierarchy. White kobolds are probably significantly more than the other kobolds.
They're the most savage of the kobolds.
I can't get this picture out of my head of like a white kobold who's like 3.5 feet tall and just shredded, just like absolutely yoked.
Well, that would actually make sense, especially if they're reptilian and they live in that space. That around that boreal and up into those lines, things are bigger up there. Natural things tend to get bigger up there. So, those creatures. And I'm glad that you brought up the kobolds, Levi, because that was definitely something that I had written down. Don't always remember the kobolds. A dragon's lair should never be empty. Oh yes, slip and slide
tunnels. Jesus.
Yeah.
They've literally got ice chutes and if they're in an iceberg, there's access to water to make sure it is constantly slick.
Yeah. And
also sections of ice water so that way your players get hypothermia and the kobolds do not.
Yep. That's how you do it. You make them walk through the water first, see, and their feet get wet. And the frostbite starts to set in as they're trying to make their way through this lair that they keep getting turned around in this glass maze. And they tried to break through, and it just won't break. The ice just won't break. Oh, finding a diary of somebody as they're trying to fight through this thing, and they just know they're trapped. They just know, and they just like, oh.
Always let the players know what they have to lose. If you wind up frozen but not dead, frozen to just be preserved for eons maybe with some magic in there, like they might come across something that is half-eaten, maybe still alive, maybe just slightly reanimated. You can really let them know that this was a bad decision that you're going to all enjoy.
Yep. Break out the Frostfallen template, kids. It's a really good Undead template, and it's definitely thematic for this, because they probably died to cold times.
Cool. Yeah, that's the worst version of Flesh to Stone I have ever heard.
Yeah, and then they just, they wake you up a little bit, because they like to have their meat fresh, but cold. And then they just bite your leg off, watch you squirm for a little while, and then they go, sleep. As they breathe on you just enough to freeze you cold.
Ick. I was really excited about how like vicious and savage, and then it got weirdly cerebral and body horror-esque, and I'm upset now.
Horror in the cold always does. No one even brought up the Wendigos.
What?
That's why. Why we went the whole thing without anybody bringing it up.
Well, that's what
Friendly
happens.
neighborhood Wendigo.
That's what happens after they gnaw off your legs, and then they're curious what will happen to you, and you have to eat your fellow survivors that he sent out. And then he regrets it, because then he's got this Wendigo that's constantly harassing him every now and then. It's just like the Wendigo leaves, and then he comes back every now and then, and the Wendigo, he's like, I fight the Wendigo. Bad neighbors. Bad neighbors.
That would be very bad for a white dragon in Pathfinder. I think the Wendigo is a higher CR than it is.
Yeah, bad idea.
Best day. It's like CR6 young white dragon, CR17 Wendigo.
Yeah, well,
who is deadliest? The Wendigo.
The Wendigo. It also depends on the age of your dragon too.
Yeah.
Well, now you just have a winded dragon.
Winded dragon.
Can dragons contract Wendigo second? To the
They
SRD.
can now.
We are GMs. We can make Dragon Wendigo ISIS. I don't know. If you need it, it's there.
All right. Okay, I'm going to rattle off a few points for consideration for your dragon lairs, since we're at the 30-minute mark, and that's kind of where we're cutting these off so people can see them. So, the
Real
main
quick,
enemies...
rules is written. They can contract Wendigo psychosis.
Boom,
I just want
boom,
to throw that out there.
boom.
That's important.
Oh, man.
Tommy will remember this.
Oh, we have to do that sometime. Constructing
Do we?
what a Wendigo dragon would look like. And you guys would do the play like, and then
That's
I would
amazing.
I would do the drawing. Its claws are all shriveled up now and gone with fire on them. There's this cold blue fire on all of its shriveled limbs down at its claws as it wings its way through the air. Oh, Kane gonna have nightmares.
No, and like the spines coming out of the back of the white dragon's head have like curled forward into like a mockery of stag antlers.
Oh, yeah.
Dracolich isn't in Pathfinder. Who cares? Got
All right.
the better one.
This is so much worse.
Okay, yeah.
All right. So, according to this practical guide to dragons, which was an official book they put out. Sure, it was a flavored book, but it was still a book. Red dragons are the ones that cause them the most problem. They're their main enemy, probably because of the fire. They like to. If you have a hatching chamber, it is most likely going to have them encrusted in ice, and usually it is the hatchlings are. The eggs are cared for enough that they will hatch. They're kind of keep encrusted in ice just enough. And then once they hatch, they don't tend to care for their younglings. They send them out to do their own thing, type of stuff. They don't. The hatchlings make it, they make it, type of thing, is what I'm getting from it. And then their favorite treasures tend to be sparkly, shiny things, especially diamonds, fine crystals, and platinum. So things that are similar to ice. And very easy to hide in ice. Man, how would you find all the treasure in that place? Like all the floors could just have layers of platinum or diamonds in them, and you just never know. Just looks like
Melt
ice.
it down.
People like to talk up the black dragon as being the stealthiest dragon. Wrong. The white dragon might not have the highest, strictly speaking, modifier, but it's got all of those circumstantial bonuses.
Yeah. So you got that. What's another thing? From the other book that I had, which is Dragon Magic. Yeah, Practical Guide to Dragon Magic. A storm shell, which is what you would go to, like if you were somebody crazy enough to try and get a white dragon to teach you dragon magic. It is called an Asyrix. And you can go as an apprenticeship or trainee. But you got to bring gifts. And their favorite food is anything, but it needs to be frozen first. Type of situation. So those are some points there. And if you try to reflavor this for other areas, a frozen planet, you could have a dragon there, because dragons can polymorph in a sci-fi universe. Polymorph dragons would be all around the place. This is evident in Starfinder. They have polymorph dragons and stuff like that, running certain things and different things like that. So if you want to move it up and down in the time scale and era, you can definitely do that, especially going out into space, since space doesn't really have a lot of heat. You could have like this dragon that literally lives on a comet. That's pretty cool.
I love it.
White dragon that lives on a comet.
The man is
Zach
writing
over here
it down.
taking notes.
So there you go. Those are some pointers that I wanted to make sure we brought up, and we are at 34. So we've kept it pretty close to time. Are there any final points that anybody wants to bring up before we move on from White Dragon Lairs?
No,
Cool ice art.
Hmm?
Make sure there's cool ice art.
Cool ice
You can
art.
have like murals out of varying levels of opacity, so that way you go in and as the sunrise goes in, it like shines in different colors and makes like the ice throne of the dragon that you're looking up from your invisible maze resplendent.
I mean,
And then it laughs at you because it knows it's going to eat you eventually.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
a huge ice stained glass mural, but all of the like articulated pieces of glass are colored with frozen blood.
yeah.
Nice.
Are there like a whole motif like the Sistine Chapel on its ceiling, but they're literal bodies?
Yeah. Alright, there we go. Make
Alright.
sure there's creepy art. Enjoy.
Creepy ice art. Enjoy. All right, everybody. Have a great day. God bless and enjoy. Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Right, we're recording these in twos. I do that.
This content was made possible by travelers and viewers like you. Thank you.